Uh, Welcome to new video on ggplot. So in this video we'll learn how to plot graphs using ggplot. So we have already imported the libraries we need. We need ggplot and we need to load this one. So let's run this, and to load data we load the data here and run this. So now you can see we have this ggplot has plotted a blank graph with background. It doesn't show anything because we have not used geom function to plot the points and data. So to find the number of rows and columns, you can use this functions to find the number of rows and columns in this data frame. So let's run this. You can see we have 234 rows and 11 columns. We can also find out the number of rows and columns using this glimpse function. You can see here this gives number of rows, columns, and all the details here. File. See. Okay. To know more about the data frames, you can use this question mark followed by the data frame. When we run this, you will see all the details of this data frame on the right hand. You can see here. This gives the detail about this data frame. See all these details: manufacturer, model, year, trans, DRV. Let's make a scatter plot using this SWI and CTY. Sorry, CY layer. So I will simply have it already written in code. I will simply copy and paste here. Now let's understand this code, what this code actually does. So we can use this specify the aesthetics. This represents the x-axis and y-axis. So on x-axis we have used this variable CYL, and y on the y-axis we have SWI. So what does it represent? So you can see highway miles per gallon, and CYL stand for number of cylinders. We will plot the scatter plot of HDY WY versus CYL. So let me run this. That's what we get. Now you can see this plot, scatter plot of these two variables using geom point. So what basically the geom point does, we can it plots layer over the ggplot. So we can add components to the ggplot using this plus sign. Plot class versus DRV scatter plot. So let me run this. Let's see what happens. You can see this, the DRV versus class plot. As you can see, this is not useful display, as these both variables are categorical variables. Since categorical variables typically take a small number of values, these are a limited number of unique combination of x and y values that can be displayed. In this data, DRV takes 3 values and class takes 7 values, meaning that there are only 20 values that could be plotted on a scatter plot of DRV versus class. Okay, now let's run on the next line of code, which is geom count. What does this display? Now you can see this is a little bit different than the previous one. What does this geom count basically function does? So what it does is gives the number of observations. What this line of code does. So we can see we are using geom tile function, and there is a mapping with this aesthetics. You can see there is a fill which takes a number, and we have this x versus class. On axis we have class, on the y versus y axis grb. Let's run this and see what happens. Well, you can see this new graph. This looks a bit beautiful and nice. How does this actually happen? So actually what we are using this tile function that actually fill this graph, and when we can use so many variables in this to define colors and everything, and observe this in graph, there seems to be some missing values. These are not complete. So for that we are going to display all the values. We are going to run this line of code that will run the complete data. So let's see, can you see this? This is amazing. And some mapping and fill some color with this color variable. We can use it pass to this geom point using geom point. So let's run this code and see what happens. Then we will go through the code. Wow, you can see this scatter plot. On the x axis we have this, and the y axis we this, and we have used this color blue on this aesthetics. So using mapping function we can plot this type of graph